Kind of hard to switch gears after that deep story,
I
I tell you.
know. It's very deep.
World Cup's going to be deep too. Qatar
It
has,
is.
There's
Qatar
gonna be
is
some stuff
awful as
there.
Oh,
well.
yeah.
Rob, you
Qatar is
got some more
awful as
international
well.
news. Human rights abuses in Qatar, home of the FIFA World Cup. What's going on?
All right. Well, so as some of you may know, the FIFA 2022 World Cup tournament kicked off today in Qatar and runs for a full month until the final in Doha on the 18th of December. So the tournament opener saw host nation Qatar lose to Ecuador 2-0 in full time today. And over the next 30 days, there are going to be 64 games played by 32 international teams before players return to their respective clubs. So bookies and experts have been checking out the teams, and the favorites are Brazil, Argentina, France, Spain, England. No real surprises there. US and Canada find themselves rated middle of the pack. And so just so you know, USA
US is
is
middle?
in group. Yeah, they're about middle of the pack. US is in Group B, and they play Wales tomorrow, and Canada's in Group F and plays Belgium on Wednesday.
Belgium.
Despite the excitement, the host nation selection has been scrutinized harshly and with good reason. Qatar, which is located in the Persian Gulf, won the bid in 2010, and it was speculated that they essentially bought it. They are one of the most oil-rich nations out there. One of the first concessions was that the tournament would be played during the winter months because the temperature in the summer there can exceed 45 degrees Celsius, which is
Too
about
hot.
113 Fahrenheit. Too hot to play that caliber of soccer. So let's get into some of the nitty gritty. As far as labor abuses are concerned, the tournament required the construction of 8 stadiums. And during that time, it has been speculated that there are some 6,500 migrant workers from India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka who have died due to unsafe work conditions. LGBTQ rights are something that is really not followed and respected. Khalid Salman of the Qatar World Cup ambassador, or the World Cup ambassador, made heads explode November 8th when he described homosexuality as damage in the mind. So homosexuality still holds legal precedent for incarceration and punishment. Not a good place to be. As far as fans are concerned, they have been warned. There is no true freedom of religion in Qatar. So don't preach other religions, don't criticize Islam because you could be criminally prosecuted. Some of the teams have taken a stand on the human rights issues, wanting it to have it emblazoned on their jerseys. But FIFA officials shot that down because it's a political statement and they don't want to be part of that. So a lot of countries have actually toned down their country's emblems so that they're barely even visible. Then designated alcohol zones, well, that's just kind of a party thing, but usually Heineken, Budweiser, big sponsors. And in a last minute move, Qatar decided to eliminate beer sales from the stadiums. So there's still select areas where you can drink, but this is a dry country. So pretty much.
Right.
And that's just a quick synopsis of a lot of things that are going on. So, my friends, I'm soliciting your thoughts on Qatar hosting the World Cup tournament. If you are going to be watching, and if yes, who you will be supporting.
Liz?
Well, of course, I'm going to be watching. It's my job to watch. And who will I be supporting? Hello, United States,
US.
even though
Yeah.
I'd be shocked if we got out of, the first group. I'd be happy. That'd be a good showing for us, considering we didn't qualify for the last World Cup. But in terms of all of the controversies and the human rights violations that you just described, I'm shocked that everyone else is shocked. I'm shocked that
Yeah.
That's
everyone
fair.
else is shocked about this.
That's fair.
One,
Right.
because again, it's Qatar, but also two, this is the way FIFA and the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, works, at least for the past 2 decades. Remember the Sochi Winter Olympics in Russia? The
Mhm.
exact same human rights violations that Rob just described were a part of those Olympics, where you had
And
migrant workers who were being overly worked and who built the stadiums, where you had the LBG community being swept off the streets or not allowed to be out openly, where you
and it's
had
funny you
people,
mention
other
it, Liz,
people
because the last FIFA World Cup was played where? In Russia in
in Russia.
2018.
And the funny
Oh,
thing about
wow.
that, Rob, is that I always forget that 2018 World Cup was in Russia because I blocked it out of my head. But it's one of those things where over the
Wow.
past 2 decades, both FIFA and the IOC are choosing countries based on what? Dollar bills, y'all. It does not
Money.
matter about human rights. It does not matter about the greater good of
Damn it.
the human race. That's what matters. I currently, I teach sports journalism at the School of the New York Times. And for most of the students that I teach now, they're not sports fans. So they want to know, what else is there to learn about sports besides wins and losses, besides stats. And I always say to them, sports is political. Sports is
Politics.
about everyday lives. It's about what we
Yep.
experience every day. There's just a game attached. And you know how much Qatar spent on this World Cup? $220 billion.
Billion.
200, the most expensive World Cup on the planet to date. Rob talked about the temperatures. This is the first World Cup where they have to have air conditioning in the stadiums and on the grass,
Oh,
so folks
wow.
don't get the heat
Privileged.
stroke. I was watching the game this morning, Rob, and so Qatar played Ecuador, right? Like Rob said,
Yep.
they lost 2-0.
Mm-hmm.
Ecuador in the stands, you look at all the fans, it was a pretty mixed crowd.
Mhm.
Men, women, children. On the Qatar side, I don't recall seeing one woman at all. It was all men.
Mm.
It was all men in the crowd. And I gotta say, because Qatar, I mean, yeah, the only reason why they're in the World Cup is because they're the host country. They didn't qualify, they got there by default.
Mhm.
So technically,
Yeah.
they shouldn't even be playing. They shouldn't have a team there. But it was great to see the looks of embarrassment on the faces of the Qatar dignitaries in the stands as
Yeah.
their team got
Mm.
stomped into the ground. So yeah, I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna root against them because they don't deserve this, and it's an absolute shame. It's an
Yeah.
absolute shame.
So, okay,
So,
so I'm gonna jump. Hold on, Johnny. So, only
okay.
because my point is almost related to Lizzie's point, almost directly related.
Uh-oh.
So, as I was reading the articles, I was feeling all the anger towards Qatar, and then I ran across a headline that said the objections to Qatar hosting the World Cup reek of Eurocentrism. And it was an opinion column by Ahmed Taji on NBCNews.com. And I was like, okay, all right, let me read this because, like you say, I'm all into it. And in the article, he says the Qatari people and the Middle East deserve to celebrate the global sport of football. The 2022 World Cup will be a rare opportunity to humanize the Middle East, a contrast to the headlines of war and Islamophobic narratives. He notes that rather than celebrating the first ever World Cup in the Middle East, the first ever, instead, there's an endless stream of negative headlines about Qatar hosting the World Cup. He talks about Qatar being condemned for possibly bribing FIFA to get the games.
Not
But then, of
possibly,
course,
they did. They
but
did
then,
though.
of course, he points out, even if that were true,
Alleged.
there's been allegations of corruption in FIFA for decades where bribes were the only way to get the World Cup. And then he talks about the allegations of migrant workers being killed that Rob mentioned, although likely true, obviously.
Uh,
He tried to put in perspective, pointing out, of course, as Lizzie kind of mentioned, Sochi and all of the other human rights violations
Brazil, South Africa.
throughout the history of FIFA World Cup, not just Qatar, but again, it seems there's a focus on Qatar, and we're not really celebrating the fact that this is the first
that is
um,
true.
this is the first World Cup in the
Non.
Middle East ever. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I was torn because the atrocities are pretty significant. But at the same time, I do kind of want to celebrate this fact of this first, even if they did have to bribe FIFA officials to get it.
I
Because
don't have to
everybody
celebrate
was
it.
bribing FIFA officials to get the World
I
Cup.
don't have to celebrate it. I don't. It's not my job to prop up Islam. That's not my
Okay, so you
Yeah.
have a
responsibility.
problem with Islam.
No, I have a problem with his notion that it's our responsibility, especially as the media, to shed a light on the fact that this is the first country, in that region. So that's not my responsibility. If they want a positive light, then they need to do better.
That's
They need
fair.
to
Yeah,
do
they
better.
should have
They need
done
to
it
be
right.
better.
That's fair. Johnny?
Simple as that.
I do think it's cool that this is a first for FIFA World Cup, but you got to do it right. It's like a kid trying to steal candy. Like it's me. It's not, you don't do things like that. It's unethical. But I was going to ask Lizzie, if this wasn't your job, would you still be watching the World Cup? Like, would you be
Would
interested
I
in
be
watching
watching
it?
soccer? No.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not a real soccer fan. No. But you know what? Let me just answer that and say I'm still a sports fan.
Football. It's in the FIFA
And
Football.
football.
listen, I am
Right.
speaking on a North American platform. It's soccer over here. But let me just say that I recognize there is a bit of hypocrisy in all of us as humans. Okay.
Mhm.
That's just
Oh
who
yeah.
we are as people. And so I do understand your point and what you're saying. And I mean, I still watch the NFL. I still watch the NBA. I'm very critical. Just because you call out something doesn't mean that you still can't examine it and watch it.
Right.
And so I'll never defend FIFA. I'll never defend the IOC. I think it's all BS. But I also think, I don't know if you guys are familiar with LIV, the LIV Golf platform now, which is trying to take all of the smoke away from the PGA golf in the United States.
Oh wow.
But Live Golf
Independent.
is funded by Saudi Arabia, another
Oh,
country in
yes.
that region that has tremendous
Oil
human rights
rich.
violations, that had 15 terrorists invade US soil, or I'm sorry, US airways on 9/11. The same country whose crown prince basically ordered the assassination of an American journalist at the Saudi Arabian consulate. And we still back them. We still give money. In fact, the Biden administration on Thursday said that we should, lean off of the crown prince of Saudi Arabia as these lawsuits start to come about for him. So we all are being hypocrites here.
So
All of us.
let me
Doesn't make it right.
we're out of time, but
Doesn't make it right.
let me ask this question. So who can host the World Cup in that sense? Because I I'd like to point out, I mean, the U.S., most of Europe, uh, of course, Russia, China have all had human rights violations. So who is able to host the World Cup,
Jamaica.
the FIFA World Cup, if that's the case? Yeah.
Jamaica.
I
Jamaica
mean,
does not have the infrastructure to host the World Cup.
I
That
mean,
would be
that's
a
the
whole.
question. I mean, we want to point out Qatar did this, Qatar did that. U.S. is worse, has killed way more people than Qatar. It has,
I
Internally,
just think
but the government here in the past 20, 30 years has killed more people here. I'm not talking about internationally, I'm talking about on home soil. The government.
we've
on
talked
home base.
about the
Well,
government killing people for centuries, decades.
I'm not, I'm
Black
not, no,
Our
I'm
police
talking
force,
about
our
the police force is not the police force is not federal government. The police forces in the
we're
United States are
talking
not
about
run.
countries as a whole, and
But
their laws
our
and
country,
their
our country as a whole is run differently than other countries. We have a
oh,
federal government and we
see.
have state governments.
See, now
We
you're
have the federal
justifying
government.
it to say that,
I'm not
the US
justifying.
is
I'm explaining government to you. I'm
no.
explaining government to you. I'm not
US is
justifying anything.
worse
I'm
than
explaining
Qatar.
government to you. U.S. is not worse
We have
than Qatar,
violated,
than its
our
own people.
government
the
has
U.S.
violated
arguably
women's
is
rights.
worse.
We
International.
violated LGBTQ rights. The federal government, we
Is
violated
is
human racial rights.
is being
Experimenting
gay
on
against the
people.
law in the United States?
Not currently, but it has been.
I'm talking about now. We're
In
talking about
some
current.
places, it is,
Who's
yes.
in the United States? No, it's not. It's not on the books in the United States to be
Sodomy
gay.
sodomy is still in the books in many
I said
states.
we. But see, first of all, sodomy isn't just a homosexual activity. First of all, let's be clear.
Okay,
It's
but
And
it
it
still
doesn't.
targets homosexuality. Come on, let's
But
be
but that
honest.
but homosexuality isn't just about the act of sex. So my question to you
It
is
still
because
targets it.
but in Qatar, being homosexual is illegal and is punishable by up to 7 years in prison. That is not
What
the
I'm
case
saying is
here.
potato,
There are no rights.
potato. You're
There are
kind of
no rights
comparing
for women
human rights
here.
violations.
Do
They
not
are
walk
all
down the street
bad.
in Qatar and be a free woman here.
The
There's
U.S.
a
is
difference.
not better.
There's a,
You
but
you
I'm
sit
not
on these
saying I'm not
But
soapboxes and
Yeah,
Neil,
it's
say
like
that the
choosing
U.S.
I'm
is
not
better.
saying
Neil,
the
better.
It's
U.S. is
not.
you're
without
bringing
sin.
up
I never
Neil.
said the
You're
U.S. is
talking
without sin. You
cultural.
cannot compare it to Qatar. You
You're
cannot
talking
compare
Oh,
cultural,
I
the
disagree.
Neil.
I
basic
completely
human
Neil,
rights
disagree.
for people
I'm
are
with
different.
Liz.
Completely
You
disagree.
cannot.
Neil,
Well,
she
we
is
Completely
wouldn't
the
even
disagree.
be able.
distinction
Do
here
you
is that
realize we
you're
wouldn't be
talking
able to
about
have this
cultural
park?
values and
We wouldn't
norms, where
even be
Liz is
able to have this
discussing
podcast
legal.
in Qatar. We wouldn't be able to have this podcast in Qatar.
That's
Okay.
true. That's
Neil and
true.
I could.
It does affect you. It does affect you differently being there. It's not just a cultural
I mean,
thing,
there's
like
places
Rob
where you
said.
can smoke weed and places where you can't. I mean, I'm just saying that there are laws that are
But
different all over the world.
That
You
was a
can't claim
non-sequitur,
that your law is better
but
than someone
whatever.
else's, is all I'm saying.
I
You
kind of agree to
absolutely
that part
Yes,
too,
you
can.
though.
absolutely can. We can
You
Disagree.
absolutely look at the
absolutely
inequities in
can.
Sharia law. Neil, absolutely.
Disagree.
Absolutely.
Totally disagree.
You can
We're going to have to
disagree, but you're
disagree because we're way
wrong.
over time, and our
That's
last two
fine.
topics
That's
will
an
have to be
interesting
quick fire.
conversation, though.
This was a pretty deep conversation. All right, so let's
There
let
was a lot.
we have to shut it
Human
down.
rights.
Loud and
There's a lot of
wrong once
comments online,
again.
but we have to try to get some of these comments
Loud
online.
and wrong
We,
once again.
let's get to real quick. Neo, she's making a valid. This is Mike Winter. And she's distinctions between federal government ordering mass executions of groups of people. I know that our federal government has ordered mass executions of groups of people. So
Mm.
When? When in the last 20 years?
every time we go to war. So
In
Jacqueline
the United
Robinson.
States. We're talking about in the United States.
So
Oh,
I'm talking about humans. Just because it's not
Neil.
internal. See, you're talking about you're trying to
Because
specify that
because
Oh,
Qatar,
I
one
see
human
Qatar
rights
has no
what Neil's
violation versus
saying.
another is okay. I
Qatar has no
disagree.
influence internationally. What do you mean you
I
disagree?
disagree. You
Qatar
can't
has
say
no
one
power
human rights violation is
internationally.
better than another.
But we are specifically talking about what's going on in this particular country and people going